Hello students and welcome back to the Lore of the Iron Kingdoms with me, Professor Caster. And for all of you new students out there, this is a lore channel for the tabletop war game of Warmachine and the role-playing game, the Iron Kingdoms. And of course, everything is set in that universe. And for all the rest of the students who are eagerly awaiting for part 2 of the history of Cygnar, that is what we're going to be knocking out today. We're going to be trying not to repeat a bunch of stuff that we were in part 1, but of course there are going to be some things that overlay, and I hope you forgive me for that, but I've tried to make some notes here so we kind of pass through a lot of stuff that we do not need to go over again. But without further ado, thank you guys so much for checking us out today, and if you could, please hit that like button, and please subscribe. It does help this channel grow and keep this steam train rolling as always, and also comment, because we love seeing comments, we love answering comments. And of course, I always enjoy hearing you guys' perspective on all sorts of stuff because you are the class and you are the most important part of this channel, as we have always said. Thank you again for Steamforge Games for letting me continue to read this fantastic lore. And without further ado, let's get into Cygnaran History Part 2. And we're actually going to start with a breakdown of the new Cygnaran power structure, because King Leto's nephew, who nobody knew existed, came back in, and due to some semi-corrupt nobles in the Cygnaran government who did not like King Leto and all of his grandstanding, I suppose, kept him hidden until he was old enough to try to reclaim the throne. There was a war or battle and some stuff, and some people died, yada yada. But King Leto decided, hey, it would be better if this kid ran, then the Cygnar nobility would be happy, because he's supposed to be leading the throne anyway, because he's his older brother's son. You get the gist. But King Julius, being a teenager, is the one who took over Cygnar at that point. So we'll be reading over the new power structure pretty quick. I'll have it up on the screen. You guys can look it over yourself. But of course, we start with King Julius, and then his Cygnaran inner council is actually Lord High Chancellor Leto, War Master General, Creelon Ebonhart, Nevarch Gallon, Sparkholm, Scout General Bolden Rebald, who almost killed Julius, by the way. If you get a chance to read the book series, I highly recommend it. I believe it is on Audible, not sponsored, but if they ever want to, let me know. The Arcane Administrator, Oren Midwinter, who was one of King Julius's tutors whenever he was in hiding. Lord Treasurer Lars Cromney, then Lord of Industry Lysater Polk. And then I will keep this up on here. You can see how the power structure is set out. You can see there's an entire Storm Division broken down, because as we read in part 1, the Storm Division was actually created for Lord General Stryker. So he had the ability to get very high assault troopers out to pretty much any battlefield he needed and not have to be stuck under a certain branch of the military. And as we're well aware, there are 4 armies of the military that are in different parts of Cygnar at any given moment. So I'll let you guys take a gander at this, but let's continue reading. Recent conflicts. Despite its status as a major power in the region, the last 6 years have been a dark time for the Cygnaran army. Surrounded on all sides, Cygnar has endured long periods of intense warfare, including a failed war to defend Lael, fierce fighting in the Thornwood, subsequent battles to drive out the largest Crixian invasion in recorded history, renewed fighting with Kodor and Thornwood, and a bitter civil war fought for the Cygnaran crown. The year 609 AR was particularly tumultuous, as many of the struggles and turmoil had been building over the last several years came to a head. While short-lived, the brief alliance between Kodor and Cygnar to drive Crix from the Thornwood was largely a success, demonstrating that mortals could contend with the undead seeking to eradicate them. The combined Cygnaran, Kodoran, and Protectorate forces managed to uproot the Necrofactorium controlled by Lich Lord Asphyxius. The accord between them did not last beyond the declaration of victory. However, as the Kodorans demonstrated their perfidy by turning on Cygnar the moment Crix was defeated. Taking advantage of the chaos in the aftermath of this conflict, Kodor sought to submit its hold over Thornwood. The Kodorans conducted punitive attacks against Eastern Ord and launched a renewed invasion into Cygnar. hoping to use Stonebridge Castle as their gateway into its interior. This offensive was forestalled by the unexpected counterattacks Vinter Raelthorne IV, with the support of the northern nobles and the Fourth Army, reclaimed the fortress. The maneuvers was part of Vinter's opening bid to reclaim the throne and beginning the Second Cygnaran Civil War. Vinter had chosen his timing well, as King Leto's armies were already pinned down, the First Army embattled with Khador, the Second facing a renewed Protectorate incursion near Caspia, and the Third Army defending the coast from Crix. King Leto was forced to withdraw in the interior with a small but dedicated force, reaching Farin, where they would make their last stand with the fate of the Cygnarans' future rulership in the balance. The third contender of the throne revealed himself at this time, Julius Raelthorne, bastard son of Vinter IV and nephew of Leto, supported by the exiled Ashest Magnus, also Magnus the Traitor. Anybody who's ever played a mercenary army will recognize that name immediately. Magnus and a large mercenary army, Julius played an instrumental part in the war's outcome. At the Battle of Farin, Vinter was defeated and slain. King Leto subsequently abdicated the throne and passed his crown to Julius, hoping to save the kingdom from years of potential strife. Most of those who had fought against Leto were pardoned in the interest of preserving the nation. Even amid the civil war, other threats sapped strength from the Cygnaran military and added to the chaos and disruption inside the embattled nation. Angry Trollkin creels banded together and emerged from the forest and mountains under the banner of war. Dragons clashed over Cygnaran skies and left an indelible stain of blight on the land. In the time of uncertainty, the nation's new and untested king has sought to change the fortunes of his nation. Temporary peace and a new war. With the nation united behind him, the young king's first action were to consolidate support behind the First Army in the Thornwood, demonstrating to Khador that their invasion would be costly and ultimately futile. The Khadorans had hoped the civil unrest would tear Cygnar apart, but they soon realized their error. After a few short months, the Khadoran army withdrew and a tense peace was negotiated. King Julius and his new inner council knew their northern rival agreed to peace only to buy time to rebuild their strength. Shrewdly, Julius negotiated for a peace that left the opening for future gains. The Khadorans surrendered the Thornwood in exchange for Cygnar publicly legitimizing their hold over Lael, as long as no heir to the old Laeli's royal line emerged. Khadoran spies believed all members of the bloodline had been eliminated, but they were mistaken. Julius's agents had discovered and safeguarded Catelyn de la Martin, the last of the Lael's royal line, who is now his betrothed. Their marriage is contingent on recovering Lael for its people, a task to which King Julius has committed. By revealing this error and confronting the Empress with the treaty that she had signed, Julius forced the hand of the Khadorans. As expected, Khador refused to yield the lands they had seized during the Laeli's War, giving Cygnar the pretext to launch a new war. In early 611 AR, the Storm Division, led by Lord General Coleman Stryker, seized the initiative by marching into the Laeli's interior. Despite bitter opposition, they managed to seize the northern city of Rivers Met from Khador before the advancing to Renner. The king soon sent additional troops from the First Army as reinforcements. If the campaign is successful, the heirs of King Julius and Queen Catelyn stand to inherit rulership of both Lael and Cygnar. And then we're going to skip over the government because we really don't worry too much about the government because we already read about that last time. The king, as the highest authority in Cygnar, by law, the sovereign possesses all of the vast powers typically held by kings, including the ability to declare war, raise and command armies, negotiate treaties, make laws, and collect taxes. That said, the king is expected to obey certain laws and traditions regarding the mechanisms by which he can exercise the authority, and the deference is expected of his peers of the realm. Ultimately, the balance of power between the king and the royal assembly changes with each sovereign. Some tyrants have largely ignored this body, while others have preferred to let the assembly effectively rule in their stead. A king who acts entirely as he pleases, or who earns the enmity of the royal assembly, runs the risk of fomenting rebellion. Cygnar's last two kings both faced insurrection. King Vinter IV was overthrown by his younger brother Leto, and Leto abdicated following the civil war that threatened to restore his elder brother to the throne. While Leto and Vinter were vastly different kings, with opposite approaches to governance, neither was able to retain the undivided loyalty of the realm's powerful nobles. Without the cooperation of the assembly, a king's power is diminished. Although the Cygnaran army technically answers to the king, many ranking officers are also nobles, and the loyalty tends to be personal. Tyrants can be overthrown, as has been shown. Cygnar is not entirely beholden to the promigatures in determining succession thanks to the Waldred's Covenant. This law allows Cygnar royalty to determine their own successor from among the noble families of Cygnar. Even with this law, the greatest bloodlines of Cygnar retain considerable status and symbolic power. A Cygnaran king has never appointed their heir who did not descend from the royal families of ancient Calasia, as such rulers would be neither respected nor accepted. The circumstances of King Julius' ascension to the throne was one of the most unusuals in Cygnaran's history. Julius was raised in secret by a cabal of former members of Vinter's Inquisition. A cabal eventually decided to overthrow Leto and see Julius crowned instead. With the help of the former Cygnaran warcaster Aschilus Magnus, Julius survived several attempts on his life and took part in the Second Cygnaran Civil War in 609 AR, helping defeat Vinter's loyalists. Much to the surprise of everyone involved, at the end of the war, King Leto decided to abdicate the throne for the good of the kingdom. Leto used Waldred's Covenant to appoint Julius as his heir, reinforcing the argument by calling into question the legitimacy of his own reign due to the usurpation. This gave him pretext to pardon the crimes committed by those who had otherwise committed treason against him, bringing peace to the royal assembly. Crowned shortly thereafter in Caspia, Julius has proven to be a cunning and bold leader who can handle himself at court as well as his military staff. Though he is young and unproven, many hope he has inherited the more positive traits of the Raelthorne line. Cygnaran nobility and the royal assembly. Nobility in Cygnar is organized in a system of rank essential to the social and political fabric of the nation. The power to create nobles, to adjust the bound of familial holdings, and to create new territories and division rests with the king. Cygnar is divided into duchies, provinces, and baronies. The largest territories, the duchies, are ruled by a duke or archduke, while provinces are ruled by earls, and the much smaller baronies are governed by barons. There exist other noble titles to signify familial relationships, but these are a matter of courtesy and carry no authority. Barons, earls, and dukes can vote in the royal assembly, as can high chancellors and Cygnaran exarchs and viscars of the Church of Morrow. Others may invite to speak but cannot vote. Wealthy merchants, military officers, and others often attend the assembly to champion or oppose proposed laws. Knights hold the lowest land-owning rank of the peerage. They are vassals sworn to serve the nobles granting their land to them. Knights are expected to be armed and capable liegemen, ready to answer their lord's call to war. Cygnar's law limits the size and disposition of a noble's household guard. Barons may retain only small armed forces to protect their land, with proportionally larger forces being allowed to earls and dukes. By those same laws, the Cygnaran military no longer relies on the mustering of nobles and their households. Instead, it leverages the power of a professional standing army. Many nobles of the realm also hold positions as officers in the Cygnaran army or navy. Such services is a matter of duty and honor, and strict covenants separate the noble's social standing and his duties as an officer. For example, nobles are disallowed from using the nation's forces to resolve disputes over their holdings and cannot abuse their authority by bestowing officer commissions as favors. Such matters are taken seriously, though eliminating political from the military has never been entirely successful. Additionally, ranking nobles are still entitled to maintain armed household guards and can employ them to enforce the peace. And the use of hired mercenaries is also common, which creates a gray area in the law. And then next is the Inner Council. Intentionally instituted by King Leto in 595 AR as an advisory council, but transitioning to a full war body in 603 AR, the Inner Council is the core of the government. It exists to keep the king informed about the state of the realm and to assist in his most vital decisions. Julius's reign has seen council undergo a return to its traditional role as a board of advisors for all aspects of governance, though it also discusses the nation's military concerns. After the Second Cygnaran Civil War, Warmaster General Olsen Turpin stepped down, as did several other members of the Inner Council. In addition to the king, the main body of the Inner Council is composed of the king's High Chancellor, Lord High Chancellor Leto Rathorn, Warmaster General Keelan Ebenhart IV, Supreme Commander of the Cygnaran Army, Navarch Galton Sparholm III, Supreme Commander of the Cygnaran Navy, Arcane Administrator Orrin Midwinter, Advisor to the King on Supernatural Matters, Scout General Bolden Ribald, Commander of the Cygnaran Reconnaissance Service, Lord Treasurer Lars Koromi, who manages the government's budget and taxation, and Lord of Industry Listor Polk, who oversees military production and the realm's commerce. During Leto's reign, the Church of Maros Primarch had an open invitation to the council. While the church's role has been diminished, Exarch Sebastian Durgul is sometimes asked to attend when he has useful intelligence to contribute. Other frequent attendees include Commander Abdep Burke Kinbrace of the Strategic Academy and Lord General Coleman Stryker, the Army's highest-ranking warcaster. And then we're going to skip around because we've already heard army organizations. 4 armies, we already heard about that last week. But we are going to skip over to something that happened with the First Army that's kind of added to it as a later fact. First Army, the Northern Army. Recent conflicts have pitted the First Army against nightmarish forces of Crix as well. Crixian infiltrators entrenched themselves in the Thornwood Forest from 607 to 609 AR as part of the largest concerted assault on the mainland since the Scarred invasion. Driving them out required the combined efforts of the First Army and elements of the Second. Even then, ending the conflict required forming a tense alliance with Khador and the cooperation with the Protectorate military force in the region. Khador broke its alliance with Cygnar almost immediately, even as the Second Cygnaran Civil War began and spread across the kingdom, occupying the attending of the king and many of his most loyal forces. Hostilities with Khador occupied the First Army with yet another bloody conflict in the Thornwood. While the opening days of the clash looked bleak, the First Army rallied and gained the opportunity to repay Khador for Northgard. The First managed to hold back the opportunistic strike of the Khadoran Second Army, consolidating its scattered forces and eventually driving Khador out from the forest. The Cygnarans attained this victory despite limited supplies and significant casualties from fighting with the Crixians. Many new Cygnaran heroes arose in the process of reclaiming the Thornwood. The battles against Khador and the Thornwood did not permit the First Army to take part in the unfolding civil war. King Leto ordered his forces to focus on preserving the north from Khador invasion. The end of the Thornwood conflict was followed by a more than a year of tense peace, but the recent campaign in Lale has summoned the men and women of the First Army, though the initial clashes were handled by Lord General Stryker's Storm Division. Lord General Duggan leads the First Army from Northgard, but its official headquarters is Point Bourne. Northgard was severely damaged in the conflict in 606 to 607 and has yet to be fully restored, though it serves as an important northern garrison and bastion. Other commanders serving in the army include General Galt Langsworth, Caroline Kissmore, Durgan Mathern, Shay Terzel, Joseph Worley, and Sebastian Nemo, when the latter's duty as Artificer General do not require him elsewhere. And then we're going to jump to the 4th Army, because as discussed in Part 1, if you haven't seen that, go back to it. The 4th Army was doing some shady stuff, and this is what happened after all the shady stuff went down. The 4th was historically used as a dumping ground for the undesirables and insubordinate soldiers branded as troublesome, but not incompetent enough to be booted from the service. While such elements did not comprise the majority of the army, the 4th nonetheless counted more criminal behavior among its ranks than the rest of the army as a whole, including extortion, graft, bribery, misallocation of resources, looting, and violence against civilians. This disreputable state opened the door for the ranking officers of the 4th Army to become involved in the treasonous conspiracy with some of Cygnaran's most powerful nobles who sought to reinstate the exiled Vinter Raelthorne IV to the nation's throne. Their insidious plan was hatched in early 609 AR with the onset of the Second Cygnaran Civil War, but did not succeed, leading the death of Vinter in the Battle of Firen. And the army involved prompted the investigation into the conduct of the fort's officer corps, and many officers were unceremoniously discharged. Most of who are willing to bend the knee to Cygnaran's new king were pardoned. thereby escaping execution for their crimes. The Fourth Army is in a period of rebuilding. Loyal officers from other armies, most notably the First, have been transferred to the Fourth to ensure the future loyalties. And the Inner Council is working on incentives to lure fresh recruits to its ranks. Leadership in the Fourth Army has been given a commander, Millet Gant, a reliable veteran of Stryker's Storm Division, to assist in the reconstructing of the army. Cygnar opened its coffers to hire mercenary warcaster General Ulsum Durg as a consultant, and tasked him with assisting Gant in bringing the Fourth up to the highest standards of discipline. Durg draws on decades of experience organizing warriors from disparate Rulet clans into the professional fighting forces. For all of its checkered past, the Fourth Army is a reflection of Cygnar itself. After surviving a period of conflict and uncertainty, it is being rebuilt into something greater. So see that? They did have a come around after everybody was fired and almost killed. I imagine a couple officers were probably killed if they didn't have the rank to say otherwise and bend the knee. So yeah. But next up, we are going to have more specialized description on certain divisions inside these armies, certain unit types rather. So let's get on to that. And first we'll read about the Cygnar Navy, because after the Thornwood and the Crixian invasion from there, you realize something has gone awry with them keeping the Crix out of the coast. So the Cygnaran Navy. Cygnar boasts the longest stretch of continuous shoreline of the nation in the Iron Kingdoms. It has a dubious distinction with sharing the broken coast with Crix. The responsibility for patrolling these waters falls to the Cygnaran Navy, commanded by Navark Gulton Sparholm III, who took over after the retirement of Gulven Trent in 609 AR. The Navy maintains officer training facilities separate from the Army, supervised from the Sentinel Point naval fortress south of Caspia. The Cygnar Navy is divided into three distinct fleets. The Northern Fleet, based in Serral and assigned to guard Cygnaran's northern waters against all threats, including the Ghodoran Navy. The Eastern Fleet, or the Caspian Fleet, based in Caspia and charged with patrolling the Gulf of Cygnar. And the Southern Fleet, based in Highgate and entrusted with defending the South Peninsula, most directly threatened by Crix. These fleets are respectively led by Lord Admiral Tucker Lupine, Blythe Wassel, and Harris Nelson, each with several subordinate admirals serving them. The Southern Fleet is the largest and sees the most action, working closely with Cygnar's Third Army to protect the kingdom from Crix, with support from the other two fleets. The Southern Fleet also plays a role in protecting the shipping lanes between Southern Cygnar and Zoo, as well as the Cygnaran colonies abroad, though their ability to do so is limited. The privately owned Merchant League has its own warships to escort trading vessels, and the League officers coordinate and cooperate with its counterparts in the Navy. Cygnar classifies the warships according to a system of ratings. First-rate ships of the line are the largest naval vessels in all Western Imoran and typically serve as flagships to fleets' admirals. Second- and third-rate ships are somewhat smaller, but their maneuverability and considerable firepower makes them masters in naval combat. With ratings all the way down to the sixth, the smaller ships like schooners, frigates, and corvettes comprised of the reconnaissance and supply ships of the Cygnar Navy. Almost all naval ships, no matter their age or class, are equipped with both sails and steam engines. Cygnar boasts the most modern naval forces to sail the Meridius. Its small but growing fleet of iron hull warships, heavily armored and driven purely by steam, signals the move away from the sail and hybrid power, though many captains still prefer the latter. The Cygnaran Navy has even commissioned several highly advanced vessels, including a number of experimental submersibles. Ooh, submarines. Let's move on to these service branches. Reflecting its combined arms approach to warfare, the Cygnaran army is composed of a diverse array of service branches, including a trencher infantry corps that is also the backbone of the army. Storm knights and gun mages are part of both the infantry and the army's small cavalry arm, and bring considerable versatility to their roles. Support units include the field mechanics, who maintain the nation's warjack, and the rangers of the Cygnaran Reconnaissance Service. And we're going to go over each one of these right now. Long gunners. Since the advent of the long gun, Cygnar has fielded skilled riflemen as part of its vast armies. Long gunners have had an extensive history of service and historically have represented one of Cygnar's two primary infantry services, the others being the trenchers. However, the days of the venerable long gunner may be nearing their end. Most Cygnaran officers prefer to lead the more versatile trencher corps in the field. Long gunners are still highly valued for their ability to provide concentrated firepower, but their numbers have diminished as their role has become more specialized. Trencher Corps. The men and women of the trenchers comprise the toughened core of the enlisted soldier of the Cygnaran army, nicknamed gravediggers for their courage and the high casualties they sometimes suffer while defending their fortifications. They are the first onto the field and often the last to leave. Trenchers form the bulk of any Cygnaran vanguard. Spread across trench lines and hastily dug emplacements, they seize ground and hold it, enduring withering enemy fire and buying time for the rest of the army. The standard trencher weapon is the heavy rifle with its bayonet, supplemented by smoke grenades to obscure the soldier's advance. Trenchers endure a lengthy period of training and physical conditioning that prepares them for all battlefield conditions. Trenchers' regiment are supported by mobile artillery teams and specialist units like commandos. To become a trencher commando, a soldier must complete a punishing training regiment taught by veteran instructors of the Cygnaran Reconnaissance Service. Such units specialize in irregular warfare and alternative weaponry. The Trencher Corps began as an experiment by Cygnar generals who wanted to see if a harsh training might transform unfit soldiers into hardened and versatile fighters. The program's success has made trenchers the cornerstone of the Cygnaran army. It is also the primary service branch open to Cygnaran Trollkin and Ogruns with patriotic inclinations. Storm Knights. Selected from the rank of enlisted and commissioned soldiers, Storm Knights are galvanic warriors trained to fight in heavy plate armor that insulates them against the lethal currents of the weaponry they wield. Several branches of the Storm Knights exist, each with a distinct battlefield role. The largest number are trained as Stormblades. These warriors specialize in leading aggressive advances, relying on their powerful Stormglaives to break through heavy armor. The Storm Guard are trained to fight in close formation with their volcanic halberds, while the Storm Lances are a swift and hard-hitting cavalry force at the vanguard of Cygnaran armies. The Storm Knights were founded by Leto Raelthorne during his time as Vinter the Fourth's Warmaster General, and have since earned a reputation as elite heavy infantry and cavalry in service of the Cygnaran crown. Royal Sword Knights. Among the oldest of the knightly orders in Western Amorn, and drawn exclusively from noble Cygnaran families, the Royal Sword Knights have been a pillar of Cygnaran's military for centuries. Unlike some modern knight orders, these knights fight with their traditional weapons, the Caspian battle blade and shield. Upon the knight's acceptance into the order, he also receives a ceremonial blade to be kept with him at all times. He is expected to maintain this ornamental weapon throughout his life, never to be drawn in battle. Upon the valiant knight's death, the blade is buried alongside him to keep him safe in the wilds of the Arcane. Militant Order of the Arcane Tempest. For more than 2 decades, the gun mages of the Militant Order of the Arcane Tempest have trained in the art of harnessing arcane power to augment their gunfighting prowess. The order grew out of the Tempest Academy, an adjunct to the Strategic Academy established by Warmaster General Garston Lattermore at the height of Vinter IV's reign. Originally a cabal of arcanists who came together in the early days of the gun mage's craft. Over time, the group became a true branch of the Cygnaran army and has grown into a professional and disciplined fighting force. Initiates of the Arcane Tempest undergo strenuous training at Point-Born Strategic Academy. All graduates are lethal marksmen, having mastered a variety of gun-based sorceries and small unit tactics before earning the right to wield a mage-lock pistol and wear the distinctive uniform of the Arcane Tempest. Most often they are organized into small strike teams within larger forces, whose commanders can use them against special targets. Sometimes these teams are integrated into regular infantry companies, fighting alongside trenchers, long gunners, heavy infantry, and rangers. Some strike forces set aside a special task, also share training with the CRS. This is also true of the Tempest Academy initiates, who score highly enough for cavalry aptitude and train to become a Tempest Blazer, extremely versatile light cavalrymen. Stormsmiths. Many of today's most brilliant minds serve as Cygnaran army, and notably among these eccentric patriots are the Stormsmiths. After being recruited for their aptitude and training by the Strategic Academy, Stormsmiths are immersed in the field of weather manipulation and galvanic thaumaturgy. Though many spend the bulk of their time engaged in theoretical voltaic research, the ultimate testing ground for their work is in the battlefield, where they take pride in supporting both their research and their comrades with practical and lethal application of fulgurating energies. Cygnaran Reconnaissance Service. Traditionally, the Cygnaran Reconnaissance Service, or the CRS, was tasked with overseeing Cygnar's military scouts and cartographers, and this remains its acknowledged primary function. The majority of its personnel are rangers working alongside the military, picked from among the toughest and brightest the military has to offer. Rangers are trained in survival skills, stealth, and secret communication. They function in a variety of roles, including guides, forward observers, and clandestine operatives, typically in self-contained teams no larger than a squad. Their swift sergeants represent the pinnacle of the fighting ranks. Following the dissolution of the spy network employed by King Vinter IV, which was dominated by the Inquisition, King Leto broadened the purview of the CRS to serve as Cygnar's intelligence gathering body. Its officers now supervise the nation's convoluted network of spies, contacts, and informants, including covert agents. To lead this organization, Leto has created ranks of Scout General, a position that would report directly to the king and coordinate activities of the Rangers along with officers of the Warmaster General. Bolden Rebald has held this position since its inception. As Cygnar's premier spy agency, the CRS is interested in both domestic and foreign affairs, anything that threatens the peace and welfare of the nation. It has succeeded in infiltrating trade, religions, and criminal organizations, as well as comprising foreign governments and military structures. Agents in the field report to senior field agents or ranking CRS handlers and are supported by networks of safe houses and secret arm caches. Field agents, most of whom are officers, are tasked with creating personnel networks of contacts and informants, including recruiting those who can work and live in foreign soil. They often rely on a complex coded messages and other clandestine means of contact. Field agents are expected to report regularly to a liaison in the order to keep information flowing and receiving orders. CRS colonels supervise the liaisons, coordinating the missions of the junior field agents, covert gun mages, strike teams, and military rangers, and report directly to the Scout General. And that should be everything we have on our fantastic Cygnaran history and their army structures and everything that happened after King Leto gave the reins to Julius. And I thank you guys so much for letting me break this into two parts, because as you see, it would have been almost 2 hours long to get over all that in one video, and I know how few of you actually slogged through 2 hour videos. So, but that is it. Thank you guys so much. If you are here, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Please share this with your friends and fellow gamers alike on your social medias. I enjoy it when you guys share this stuff because it really does help spread the word about our fantastic lore reading that we do. Also, if you could, please comment. Let me know what you think of the Cygnaran army. Let me know who your favorite military guys are. Are they the gun mages, the stormsmiths, the trencher corps? You know, whatever. Let me know, because that would be cool. We can discuss it in the comments below. Also, thank you again for Steamforged Games for letting me continue to read this fantastic lore. And as always, class dismissed.